Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hi everybody and welcome back to the English with Kirsty podcast, and this is a solo episode today. I want to talk to you about something that worked for me and something that I think is maybe overlooked when it comes to improving your language skills once you've got them to a fairly decent level or a lower intermediate level. But first of all, I just wanted to talk about the events that are coming up this month. So English with Kirsty has a new section on the homepage on englishwithkirsty.com. And if you go there, you can see all the events that are coming up, and I keep this up to date. You can also get the newsletter, which is the way to be told about any new events that are coming up. So you can sign up for that on englishwithkirsty.com, but you can also look at this events section now, and that will give you the information about events. So whether you're listening to this now or in the future, the events section will remain there. I'll just go through the events quickly now for anyone who's listening this week. Today is the 14th of March. So what's going on in March? We have 4 things this month. So the first one is the 19th of March, which is the Conversation Club for business owners and freelancers. And we have a guest speaker who's going to be talking about using LinkedIn to promote our services, getting the best out of LinkedIn, talking about some new features and answering questions. So if you're a freelancer or small business owner or large business owner for that matter, you can sign up for that on the 19th of March in the morning. On the 20th of March, I have an introduction meeting for the course that I'm running for freelance translators. So this is not about how to be a translator, it's how to speak English when your job means that you don't have to speak a lot of English. So it's for people who want to feel more confident about speaking, for translators specifically. This is a course for translators who work a lot with text, and this is to give them opportunities to speak, and because this is important if you're going to conferences or you want to speak to English speaking customers, if you work directly with customers. So that is on the 20th of March in the morning. On the 26th of March, I have my interactive workshop about making accessible content. So this is slightly different from what I usually do because it's not language skills as such, but I think that effective communication is also accessible communication. So it's about helping businesses to be more inclusive when they create social media content, so that people who use a screen reader will be able to access that content and participate. So that is on the 26th. And then on the 27th of March, we have our general conversation meeting for the Conversation Club, and we have a guest speaker there who's coming to talk about her work in subtitling, what goes into subtitling, and we're going to have a general conversation about, I imagine, about films and series and other things that people like to watch, with a bit of input from someone who works in this area of creating subtitles. So that's what's coming up in March. If you're listening to this later, then you've missed these things, but there will be more. So the best way to keep up to date is to sign up for the newsletter or to follow me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn and I post about all the new events there. So today's topic is about volunteering, because I saw an article about volunteering a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, yeah, this is something that's really helped me as a language learner. But it's not something that I often hear people talking about. So I just thought that maybe if we do a quick session about it, you can have a think, and it might be something that would be helpful for you. So obviously, volunteering, it's not a job, it's not paid. So it takes time out of your day, but it also gives you a lot of opportunities to learn and to develop your skills. So it doesn't just have to be something for young people who want to improve their skills. It can be anyone, because I believe we should never stop learning, and there's always, every day, there's an opportunity to learn something new. And I think it's a good attitude to have, to be open to learning all the time. The types of volunteering you can do are so different. I specifically wanted to do some that would help with my language skills. So when I did it, it was to help with my German. And that was at a time when I didn't use German at work at all. I had a job in communications where I didn't need it. I was only working in English, so there was no need for German, but I really wanted to keep those skills up to date and improve them, because I knew that at some point I would be using this language for my job, as I do now. And therefore, I thought it was important to do something that made me use my German regularly. So I know when people think about volunteering, sometimes they think about, going somewhere, you're spending a couple of weeks working on a project somewhere. That is an option. That's something you can do. Possibly more suited to people who have less commitments in terms of their job or their family or other responsibilities, but it's certainly one thing that you can do. If you live in the country where the language is spoken, I think you have a lot more opportunities, because you can go and join groups of people who are working on specific projects, or you can contact organisations to see if they're looking for any voluntary helpers or supporters to work on their projects. What I did was nothing like that. I had an online role. So I was working for an online platform in Germany, a voluntary organisation. So I had no specific meetings that I had to attend, but I had my responsibilities. So that helped me, because there were things that I said I would do and I was responsible for those things. So that gave me a reason to use the language. I was, if I didn't do what I said I would, people would be asking, why didn't you do it? So I was responsible for certain areas. I was also involved in teams, working with people. And so for me, that really helped me to, especially I think for somebody who wasn't using the language regularly at work, and also for somebody who wasn't living in the country where the language is spoken as a main language, the online option really worked for me, because I could fit it in with everything else I was doing. I was working full time, and it would have been difficult for me to say, take an afternoon off and go and do something, but I could fit in these tasks around what I was also doing. So I would say that the 5 things that it really helped me with in terms of my German was, so number 1 is accountability. Like, I had to do what I said I was going to do, because I committed to these things. So I had things that I needed to write, things that I needed to talk with people about, things that I needed to move forward with in the project. So they were my responsibilities, and that it was all done in German. So it was all a reason to use my German. Number 2 is it helped me with interpersonal skills in that language, because you can do all kinds of theoretical stuff if you're studying a language. What would you do in this situation? But when it's a real situation, it's different. You're interacting with real people and their real personalities, and you have real situations. And I think it helps you move from that more theoretical idea about a language to actually developing your skills and your personality too in that language. How do you resolve conflicts in your first language, and how are you going to do it in the other language when it's maybe a bit more complicated, because you have to think about the vocabulary and the emotions, and how are you going to be in the other language? I think having a real situation in which to do that helps you to develop your skills a lot better in a more real and authentic way. So number 3 is about the language. Especially if you haven't lived in a country where the language is spoken, or if you don't have a lot of contact every day with it, I think it's really important to learn how people really interact. What do people really say when they're annoyed? Not what do they say in the school book, or what do people really say when they are enthusiastic about something, or when they are not sure about something, or what kind of phrases do people use? So that kind of takes me on to number 4 as well, because it's about this difference between business, English or German or whatever language, and everyday language, because there's a difference and you need both. So it's about developing different types of language. I did need my general German because we had some social events. I was talking to the users of the site. I needed to be able to speak in a very kind of normal, everyday way. But there were also times when we were discussing, strategy is a bit too much, but how to move forward with projects, reviewing ideas, explaining the advantages and disadvantages of moving forward in a certain way. And that was moving more into the business German realm. It wasn't a very structured business type. The presentations, I didn't have to give presentations, but I did have to present ideas. But that was moving more into the kind of German that I would need if I were speaking German in a business context. So I think it's also good for developing different types of the language or communicating with different audiences. And that's a really valuable skill to have. And the fifth thing about volunteering is all the other stuff you learn. So you might go there to learn something about a language, or you might go there to, support an organisation that you care about because you feel passionate about their work. But every time you work with people or animals, I guess, if it's an animal role, you learn new things, because we do. We're constantly meeting with people and learning through the experiences that we have every day. So I think whatever you plan to learn, that's great, but you will also learn a lot more. And I know that I developed more as a person through having these volunteering experiences, and that's a good thing. Some of it was great fun, some of it was a bit more challenging, but I know that as a person I developed as well, both in terms of my language skills and in terms of who I am and my interpersonal skills. So is volunteering something that would help you if you're trying to develop your language skills? Is it something you could explore? Is it a way to meet some new people who speak this language, whether that's English or another language? And we're so fortunate now that there are also online opportunities. If it's not something you feel that you could go somewhere or physically be somewhere every week, then maybe there's an online opportunity where you could get involved. Or maybe if you live in a town where the language is spoken, or a village, then maybe it's an opportunity to meet new people, because sometimes I think meeting new people is super hard. If you move somewhere new, or if you decide that you want to increase your circle of friends or things like that, it's really hard if you don't have a reason. So if you find a reason, either by joining some kind of group or doing a volunteering role, then you have a reason to be there and a joint purpose, and that can really help with developing friendships as well. So there are a few ideas. Let me know. Send me a message if you have any volunteering experiences, if they've helped you to learn a language. If you want to share about that, I'm happy to share them if we get any feedback on the podcast. But I'm also interested to know who the listeners are and what kind of experiences you've had with this. So you can always send me a message at podcast@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can come and find me on LinkedIn. I also have a business Facebook page, which is English with Kirsty, and LinkedIn, I'm Kirsty Wolf. So have a great week, everybody. Have fun learning English, and I challenge you to think of something you can do today that will give you the chance to learn something new.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.